What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, share these videos, and comment. And remember, videos come out every Sunday morning. And you can always donate to the channel by clicking the link in the description below or with super thanks. I appreciate all your donations. Thanks a lot. You can always watch all of the other Wizard Golf lessons by clicking in the icon up here or the link in the description below. So we're still on the driver. Hopefully you guys are starting to hit your driver a little bit better than you were, understanding what is necessary, especially through the impact position and some setup procedures that'll put us in a good starting position to be able to hit the ball very well, far and powerfully. So today we're going to go over some specific mechanics, how the body is going to move or how we would like to move our body in order to hit the ball. Of course, these are just targets, these are goals. Even myself, as I swing, I'm trying to approach these motions. It's very difficult to actually achieve these motions when we're trying to hit the ball hard, when we're trying to swing fast. But this is the goal. This is where I think that you would want to try to be in order to hit the ball very well. We're going to discuss the body motions in two different pieces. That is the upper body above the belt and the lower body below the belt, the legs and the hips. I've already explained to you how the grip moves, how the lever action works, so be sure you go and check out the lever video, lesson number 1, so you can understand that, because we'll be adding our body motions into that lever to produce some power. Remember that all of these body motions that I'm discussing here are also in lessons 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So go back and check that out if you haven't already done so, but we're going to go over it a little bit more in detail here, specifically for the driver, but they will be the same, they'll cross up. So first we'll start with the upper body. The upper body motion is actually quite simple. The upper body motion is just a rotation. We're just rotating the spine, rotating the shoulders back to this position here. And the amount that you're able to rotate will certainly depend on your flexibility, perhaps your age. But I think rotating the shoulders about 45 degrees without rotating the hips is pretty good. Just being able to turn my shoulders 45 degrees is sufficient. And then along with another 45 degrees from the hips, I can get my shoulders to 90 degrees from my starting position. So the goal really is just to try to get from here to here, and that is 45 degrees of hip rotation, 45 degrees of shoulder rotation, and both of those combined will add to a 90-degree turn. If you can get a 90-degree turn, this will be a very powerful position. Even if you can get a little bit less or more, that's okay, but we would like to get to about 90 degrees. This is going to be plenty of turn for you to deliver the club powerfully to the ball. So the upper body is really just moving like this, just rotating. And we have our arms somewhat extended, so the upper body rotation is just going to be moving from here to here. And then once we add the hips in, which will be later, we'll show you about that in just a second, you will be able to get to a 90-degree turn. We'll call this a unit turn because we're turning everything together. Notice my hands are pointed forward in front of me, and as I turn, my hands still stay straight out in front of my chest. Wrapping your arms around your body like this is not the same as turning. This is just moving your arms around your body. This is not what we want to do. We want to use our body rotation by turning the shoulders, turning your entire body like so. You can practice this motion standing up because it will relate to once we finally get down onto an incline. But we really just want to be able to turn our upper body to make a unit turn with the triangle on plane, so that we go from here and turn. So the upper body motion is relatively simple. Adding to the upper body rotation, once we have this, we understand that we want the club coming somewhat out of a 90 degree from our axis of rotation, which will be our spine. So if it's coming straight out of my body like this, and I don't have it at maximum extension, but somewhat lower for this demonstration here, when I turn back, my unit turn will look like this. So I'll have the club still pointed towards my body. And at the end of my rotation, that's when the club will hinge. Think about swinging this on top of a tabletop. This is the plane of your swing. To simplify the swing, we want to keep the plane of the swing flat to keep the club on one plane. So like Mo Norman, I do agree that the club is best swung on a single plane, similar to what Bryson DeChambeau is doing. So we want to keep this club on one single plane. As I turn back, once I turn so far, I can no longer turn anymore. In order to get the club further behind me, this is when the hands hinge, and then the club will continue to travel behind me. And I can get the club behind me by allowing the club to hinge. Otherwise, the club would stay here. So we rotate back, shoulder turn, and then add the hips. And then at the top of the swing, the club will hinge. It is possible to hinge earlier, to hinge first and then turn, as some people advocate. Honestly, I don't think it really matters as long as you reach that position. I do like, though, to have my club hinging at the top because I like to use that timing of the hinge to set my lower body to prepare for the delivery. You're free to experiment and see what works for you. So this is going to be the upper body movement. Very simple. From the back, I'll show you. We go back, the club hinges, and we return, and the club unhinges. Notice that when I stop my upper body rotation, the club unhinges. I'll show you from this angle. It's a very simple motion. This is how the upper body is going to move. Just a unit turn to 90 degrees. Actually, the upper body is only turning about 45 degrees. That's a pretty big stretch already. It's very difficult to get to 90 degrees without turning the hips. But along with the upper body rotation plus the hip rotation, we can get a 90-degree turn with the upper body on the shoulders. So you will want to practice this motion at home, in your yard, in front of a mirror, a window, something where you can see yourself, to be sure that you're making the motions that you want to make. Reinforce those movements so that this becomes your new habit, your new default, your new muscle memory. And then once you have this, it's important to understand the swing horizontally. This makes sense because we're normally using tools like this. The golf club is different because we have to use it at an angle, at an incline, and then try to hit something that's flat. But understanding the swing like this will translate very well to hitting it on the ground because it will be the same motion. This motion that I'm making here with my swing horizontally is going to be the exact same motion that I make at an incline. Now I know some of you may think that my position here is very flat, and it is, if you compare it to what's been known in golf theory beforehand. And I'm going to explain this to you now. My theory is that I want to sling this club in the direction of the shaft because I must input my bodily energy into the shaft, which then goes to the club head. It has to go through the shaft, so I'm really thinking about swinging this shaft. And if I were going to swing the shaft and hit something very hard with just a stick or even a baseball bat, I would want my motions and all of my energies to be delivered parallel to my direction of rotation. I would want all of my energies to be delivered in this direction with none vertical or perpendicular or to any other angle that I wish to deliver the shaft. In other words, I want all of my energies to be delivered through this circle, through this plane, at the ball, and none to be going up nor too much down. Most traditional golf swings involve a lot of picking the arms up as you rotate back. So as my backswing position would be here, you look at many different golfers, even tour professionals, their position is here because they've picked their arms up. I don't advocate picking the arms up. If you consider that we're going to hit something horizontally, again, because we can translate this at being at an angle, if I were to pick my arms up, then at some point I'm going to have to bring them back down. Otherwise, there's no way I could get back down to the ball that would be here. If I picked my arms up at any point in the swing, I would have to drop them, which is why they talk about dropping, the vertical drop at the top of the backswing, because they're trying to get it back down into this position so that they can then sling it. What I'm saying is, why pick the arms up at all? Why add that extra movement just to put it back down on the plane? Because I don't think that this motion translates to that much increase in power. I think it's a wasted movement, and that it takes too much timing and control to be able to pick the arms up as we turn and then to drop them back down into the plane and then swing, as opposed to just swinging back and rotating and coiling and then uncoiling from that same position, as opposed to doing this and then this, just doing this, which seems far more efficient, and I think it's equally powerful, if not more powerful, because it's more efficient. Of course, I leave this to you to experiment. I've already done my experimentations over multiple years of practice and testing things out. I'm presenting these ideas to you to maybe transform your game and make it a little bit easier for you to hit the ball. So when you think of my swing being flat, understand that the top of my backswing is going to be equivalent to where all the other players drop down before they begin their turn, which is going to be here. You'll notice that they're all here in this position when they begin their turn and rotating into the ball. They don't turn into the ball from here. There's no way you could, because you would chop straight across the ball and slice it. You would have to come down and reach this position and then rotate through. So I advocate this. I think it's a much simpler way to hit the golf ball and far more consistent. Check it out for yourself. So understand, when you see my backswing and you say that it's flat, it is flat considering what modern golf theory says, but to me it's exactly on the plane, because it's on the same plane as the shaft when I started, and so it's straight behind me from that plane. That being said, the driver swing will be the flattest plane of all of your clubs, because it is the longest club, therefore it's going to be the shallowest of the swings. If I were to grab a sand wedge, the shaft is much more vertical, so here this swing is going to be much more vertical. But with the driver, because it's long and far away from me, this lowers and shallows out the swing, so the driver swing is going to be quite shallow and long. The plane is not so steep, but rather shallow like this. So the club is going to be moving. If you look at the angle, the club is going to be moving around you and behind you. If you look at the angle that the club makes here with my body, which should be perpendicular with my body, if you took a line and intersected that, it would go through my gut and straight out my back, and it would be something like this, the other side of that. This is the same line that I want, because from here I can throw it through that same plane, or turn through the same plane, and then deliver the club into the back of the ball. These are the ideas that we're going to be using to hit the golf ball. This is probably going to be somewhat very new to a lot of you, but I think that if you test it out and try it, you will like the results. Understand that the upper body is the transmission of your golf swing. It is not where your power comes from. It is merely what transmits the power into the club. The lower body is your engine. This is where your power comes from, your hips and your legs. Your legs, your engine, is what drives the transmission, which is your upper body, which then delivers the energy into the club, in that order. Power in the golf swing comes from the ground up, not from the top down. We have to generate power from the earth, from the ground, and then translate that into rotational energy. So we definitely get energy in our golf swing from the feet, to the legs, to the hips, to the shoulders, to the arms, to the hand, and then into the shaft, and then finally into the club head. It comes like that. It moves from the feet into the end of the club head, much like a whip. Keep this in mind as you're swinging your clubs and you're wanting to develop power. In this video, we're going over the mechanics. Next video, we're going to talk about getting some power once you understand the mechanics. The lower body in the golf swing, in the driver swing, is going to move like this. with a somewhat wide stance. We want a wide stance for stability, but remember, the stance need not be wider than you can get your hips on top of your leg. Then you can distribute your weight and move into that position from here to here. So here, see, I can move my weight on top of my left and my right. So this is about as wide as I would want my stance to be. Any wider and I can't do that. The lower body is going to move like this. In the backswing, the hip will go on top of the right leg. And in the through swing, or rather shortly before the downswing, the hip will move on top of the left. From the right to the left. You can practice moving your body like this. This is going to be very helpful for you to understand this motion. Notice that when I'm doing this, I'm not moving my head. My body is just going, I'm able to transfer my weight from my rear foot to my front foot or my left leg simply by shifting my hips forward and back. It's like doing the salsa. This way, then this way. Not only are the hips shifting from one leg to the other on top of the right in the backswing to the front in the through swing, but they are also rotating. And we want to get about 45 degrees of hip turn. So from this plane to about this. When your hips are turning, your feet and legs are also moving. Your feet are moving like pedals. As we go into our backswing, the right leg will extend some. It's okay if it straightens out. The right hip is going to turn and go back and up. The left leg comes in, and my weight is very much on my right side and in the center of my right foot here. And then when we go through, we transfer the weight forward and do the same on the other side. So we move from this position to this position. See the swayed, weight on this side, and then rotated on top of the left. It is symmetric. This is how the lower body will move in your driver swing. Now this motion is kind of easy to do when you're standing up straight. Getting some rotation. You can think of getting that rotation back by just pulling this hip back, straightening the right leg, and that throws the hip back. That brings your upper body with it. You don't even have to turn your upper body. Once I throw my hip back, it pulls my upper body with it. If I just snap my right leg back, it brings my upper body with it. My weight goes to the right. Oftentimes when I swing though, I don't extend my right leg completely because I want to have some semblance of control, and maybe I don't need a full hip rotation. But you can go all the way to this position and then back. So we can extend the right leg, and then to go the other way, we straighten the left leg. And then that puts us on this side. So my feet are working like pedals. When I go back in my backswing, my weight is towards my heel of my right foot. And on the ball of my left foot, my heel is off the ground. And then when I go the other way, my foot will come down, my right foot will start planting down into the ground, going into the ball. The left foot will start coming back, and now my weight will be more on my heel on my left foot. So it changes. Backswing like this, forward swing like this. Because power comes from the ground up, as you take your stance, it is important to be balanced into the ground, to have your weight in control. If you're easily toppled, if the wind is blowing you over, you're not into the ground. You have to get into the ground by sinking in a little bit. In that athletic posture that we talked about in the first lesson of driver, that's the position you want to be in, to be nice and strong and have a solid foundation for which to turn your body and to be able to withstand the speed that you want to deliver the club. What do I mean that power comes from the ground up? That means that I'm utilizing the ground force. I'm using an upward leg thrust and transforming that into a hip rotation, which then drags the upper body or the torso, which then hits the left arm, my lead arm, and then into the club. In other words, let's pretend that this is my lead arm and it is my left arm, and I want to essentially, backhand slap a wall or something that's right here, like my golf swing. If I were to just move my arm, you can tell that this is not very powerful. Even if I wanted to hit it very hard, that's just not, it has no energy into it. I need to use the muscles of my body and the ground and coil like a spiral in order to deliver a lot of speed and power. And that happens with using the ground. What I would do is I would load into the ground at some point in my swing and then use the vertical thrust to turn my hips. Notice there I'm using this downward energy and then pushing up, and it's hitting my hip and turning my hip this way, and that is what drives my upper body into the ball. I'm not simply pushing it like this. I'm driving it from my left leg, and that is what's pulling my body into the ball. Pulling my arm, pulling my upper body, pulling my torso, and helping me turn into the ball. That's what's really driving my speed, is the ground. That's what I mean by energy comes from the ground up. Another way to think about this is we have to use the potential energy to turn that into kinetic energy. And we get potential energy by going into the ground. Think about jumping. If you were to ask me to jump from here, I can't jump from this position. I have no stored energy. I can't just go straight up. Before I go up, I first have to go down and sink into the ground and then push up out of the ground. That's the same concept we want to use in the golf swing, except instead of using and translating that energy upwards, we're using that upward motion to turn into a rotational motion. It still is going up, but we're throwing the hips up and backwards, which spins them, and then which spins the upper body. This is why the lower body is the engine that is driving the transmission, which delivers the energy to the club. So you can think of the lower body as the engine of your swing, the upper body as your transmission. So many of you that are trying to hit the golf ball with your arms like this, that's just weak. That's just not going to do. If you want to hit something hard, you've got to use your legs and your hips and your butt to move like this, to deliver that club very powerfully. So I'm going to show you a couple of demonstration swings here so you can see this all in action. I'm going to show you a couple from the front view and then some swings down the line. When you take these practice swings, I recommend taking the practice swings moving back and forward without stopping. Try not to reset. Use the momentum of the club once you're in your follow through to come back and unwind into the top of your swing and then unwind again. Practicing these motions so you can see there, that's quite a powerful swing, and I'm not really trying that hard. With technique, I can deliver this club quite quickly to the ball without doing very much. I'm just winding up, allowing it to hinge, rotating back, and then remember that I'm bracing, braking, attempting to stop at impact, allowing the club to pass me here so that it comes through the ball. I'm not pulling the handle through the ball like this. I'm certainly not doing that. That's one way to hit it, but we're not trying to hit it like that. I want to hit it with the lever action of the club. That is, I want the club to work like this, to lever into the ball, and I'm adding the rest of my swing to that. So I'm creating this long whip-like motion. So it goes back, hinges, back through the ball, and then I stop and it unhinges through the ball, and then into a full finish. Once I stop and break and release into the ball, I kind of relax after that moment. That is where your grip is going to be the tightest, because that's going to be when the club was going to be moving the fastest, and when it reaches that point where it's going to want to pull out of your hands. So I'm very strong and firm in that position, especially with the left hand. The right hand's kind of loose, but then I relax and loosen and let the club go immediately so that I can get a full extension through the ball, like so. I'm going to show you those swings down this way now, down the line. And for all of you that want me to see me hit balls, I could hit the ball here, but you would never be able to see it on the camera anyway. I've hit a couple of shots for you with my driver on the short, so you can see those. And you can see how far I can hit it with that swing. And that's just a gaming swing that I hit there. But if you want to see me hit some, you can definitely check out those shorts and see me hit a couple of drives. Top of my swing. Notice this position here. Careful not to let your right elbow fly up. If your right elbow is up, you're going to get stuck. Remember, this is our power position. It's like serving a tray. We want to be up in this position here, not like this. There you have it, a few swings. That's the swing that I would recommend using to smash your drive. It's very solid, very consistent, and quite powerful. Next week, we're going to go over specific motions to increase your power, now that you have this understanding. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, videos always come out every Sunday morning, and you can always check out 2 videos here and subscribe here. Thanks a lot.